this is my first involvement as kind of interim head coach. So it's amazing the things you've got to start thinking about. But at the moment, everything's kind of in my own time. So I'm finding excuses not to do anything and probably leave things to the last minute.
You're touring to Georgia and Romania for full tests. How important is that for the development of a team like Scotland, where a number of the players are obviously away with the Lions in South Africa?
Really important for us. It's going to test our strength and depth, and it's going to give us opportunities for other players who might not have got those chances to show what they can do as well. We're really fortunate that we've got 8 guys going with the Lions. We'll have some players who are out through injury, some won't tour at all. So it'll be excellent to get some of these young players or some players who potentially haven't had a shot in this environment go to see how they perform going into the kind of World Cup in 2023.
And Georgia and Romania are not teams that people are very familiar with. So it's quite a testing couple of games for the players themselves. It's not as if they're playing England, they know how England play.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Romania 2005 when I played, and I remember we went 7-0 down after the first 30 seconds. And I was like, oh, here we go, and it was roasting weather. It was a reasonable crowd back then, and it's an intimidating place that there won't be the crowds there, but still it'll be hot. It'll be a huge Romanian team. Same with Georgia. We've played Georgia a few times in the last couple of years. Yeah. And they're a strong team. So especially younger, inexperienced players in that pack in the front row, they'll get a real test over the summer.
And how important is it for you? Because, for the first time, you're the heat bummer, as they say, and it gives you the chance to, stamp a bit of your style on the Scotland team.
It's a really exciting opportunity for me. I've worked with Gregor now for my whole coaching career, starting off at Glasgow and now with Scotland, and I've been doing more and more kind of each year. And with Gregor going away with the Lions now, this is my opportunity, as you say, to put a little bit of Mike Blair into what we're doing. But it's important at the same time to realize what we've done well so far and just progress that. We don't need to change huge amounts, but it'd be nice to have a little sprinkling of something different in there.
I'll return to Gregor later, but first of all, let's talk about early days. And clearly, rugby was a game you were destined to play. You seem to come from a rugby playing family. Was that the case?
Yeah, my dad was captain of Edinburgh Accies in the 70s, I think it was. I remember quite clearly. We had a teacher, it was Mrs. Brown. Carmel Brown was her name. I remember her first name was Carmel because I got in trouble when I was in P4, but for calling her Carmel. I thought I was being funny and cheeky. So Carmel Brown, she had a husband played rugby for Barmuir, and usually you started rugby a little bit later, but she was really into it, and so she started rugby with our year. And I remember really vividly sitting cross-legged at the front of the class, and she was kind of going through who wants to play what position. And she said, right, who wants to play scrum half? And I put my hand up and I said, oh, my dad played scrum half, so I want to play scrum half. So that's kind of where it all started off for me.
And it's obviously continued ever since. You obviously went to the academy because your father went there. Was there a tradition of the Blairs going to the academy? Any others?
My granddad was at the academy as well. We've got this photo at my mum and dad's house of my grandpa, my dad, myself being kind of captains of the team, which is quite cool. But yeah, there's no, I think David was captain of the school as well, one of my brothers. And Alex, I'm trying to think, I don't think Alex was a captain. He was a little bit rougher around the edges. So he was, I think he just played, although I can't remember. You're testing my memory now.
Well, it's certainly rugby aristocracy. You started playing age 7. You captained every team you played in from P5. Is that the case?
I think that's probably right, barring kind of when I went up to first 15 and I was
start.
kind of the younger 2 years.
But do you feel don't be modest here, that you feel you're kind of a natural captain, that you're the kind of person that people will play for, and that you're able to make decisions easily and quickly?
I don't know. It's a good question. Obviously, you'd think the amount of times that I've done it, that would be the case. But I don't know. I'm not too sure. Like I'm really passionate about the sport. I'm really passionate about winning, making people better. So in terms of leadership, I wouldn't be someone who would be kind of shouting things from the rooftop. I'd be more kind of hand around the shoulder, quiet word kind of guy. But I think through time, I've kind of changed my leadership type role, a little bit softer with it now, I think.
To play for the first 15 at the academy is always a thrill. To play for 2 years is quite a feat, but to play for 3 years, I mean, that's off the scale. What was it like to go in there in your first year when you were playing with presumably these kind of giants of the school? I mean, did you feel overawed, or was it just a case of, right, okay, give me the ball and I'll do something with it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was fortunate with the introduction I had, because we had a tour to South America. So we went Argentina and Chile in 1996. So I was actually a year younger than, so it was kind of the summer before my first year of first 15. And there are a couple of players who'd be 3 years older than me on that tour as well. So that was a real experience. I was the only one from my year, and to get to know people in a tour type environment definitely made things easier going into the season to come. You knew people. Like, if I think I'd gone straight in without that tour, I think it'd been harder to get to know people and integrate. But because of that tour, I think it made things easier to integrate. But I don't know, being a scrum half, you always, like, everyone's always bigger than you anyway. So you just get clever at avoiding contact and being smart and stuff, as all nines are. Who
were your coaches in those days, Mike? How did they influence you?
So Gary Bowe was the head coach, and he was a massive influence throughout my whole Price School career. He was first 15 coach, first 11 coach, and he was my class master in my last year at school as well. So he had a really positive effect on me. Like, we had a good, I don't know if friendship's the right word, but we had a good relationship. And one of the things that taught me was, the better you get on with someone, the more likely you are to work hard for them. So I respected Gary Bowe. I enjoyed his company, and as a result of that made me try harder in the things that he was involved in. So with my coaching now, I try and have a good relationship with the players on a friendship level, so that hopefully that when they go into the pitch, they work hard for me.
How, with all this playing rugby, and you mentioned you played a bit of cricket as well, how did it affect your class time? I mean, did you manage to pass your exams, and were you a decent pupil in the classroom?
Probably depends who you ask. I was okay. I'm not hugely intellectual. My older brother, he was the kind of brains of the family. Peter, so he probably stole a bit of his three other brothers, but I guess we've probably got intellect in different ways. Yes. Peter was very kind of book smart, but I think the three others also got intelligence in different ways. But I got through school fine. I wasn't hugely passionate about learning many of the subjects we were doing, but just about got through enough to originally get the grades to go to Durham University, actually.
And when you walked out the school gates in '99, what are the things that you think you took in terms of what the academy taught you as a person that have sort of taken you through life? Or do you think that the academy was kind of very much a formative formative part of you as a person?
Yeah, I was fortunate. I had lots of good teachers and lots of good friends around me. And we had a really good time. My friends have been successful in what they've gone on to do now as well. And I think that a lot of that's testament to what happened at the school. The environment there, it was strict, but it was fun as well. So probably as I mentioned already a little bit about like taking some of those lessons about the enjoyment. If you're enjoying things, you're more likely to learn, you're more likely to thrive. So that's certainly something that I've taken forward, and that's something that I keep pushing with my kids who are both at the academy now as well.
It's strict but fun. That sounds like a motto for the Blairs.
Yes, yeah, you can copyright that one.
Okay, so when you went to Durham, but at what stage did you start to think, this rugby thing, I think I might give it a go professionally, see what happens? Was that in your mind at Durham or before or when?
This is maybe a strength and a weakness, but I don't really think too much ahead. When I went down to Durham, part of it was it was a good rugby university. They had close links with Newcastle Falcons as well.
It's also not a bad university, Mike. It's not.
What's that?
It's not a bad university either.
I was coming on to that. And obviously a good reputation. Actually, what I found is that I only stayed at Durham for a year, and part of that was because I was coming back to Scotland for age group rugby and what have you, and it was just easier to stay in the system, I guess. By coming back up, but Durham University, it's amazing. The people that I went to university there, the guys who are in my class, the amount of people in that who've gone on to be really, really successful. And the course that I did, it wasn't a great course. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say what the name of it is. The name is Sport in the Community, and it was just a horrible name. But they basically couldn't come up with a name between sports studies and sports science, because it wasn't sciencey enough to be sports science, but was more than sports studies. So people coming out of that class just did brilliantly. And I transferred up to Edinburgh, and the class that I had there, although guys have still done really well there's definitely something that's on your CV that was kind of, I went to Durham University. So a little bit of a regret, I guess, is that I didn't finish that out, but I think it kind of came right in the end.
You made your debut for Edinburgh Rugby in 2001, and you did a lot for Edinburgh. You played there for a number of years. You got the European Cup semi-finals. That must have been a highlight. How much of a step up for you playing rugby was that? I mean, did you take to that easily, or was that tough?
I didn't find it too bad, actually, just because I'd always kind of played above. So like the tour in '96, played with people older than me, and because of the position I played, you could avoid stuff. You're facilitating other players. If you're smart with it, it didn't really matter. And my skill set was at a reasonable level to be able to to continue going up. So I didn't find it too bad. Probably the only step up that I struggled a little bit with was the international to the Lions, and I don't really put that down to ability. I think that was more a mindset thing of, I'm that's great, I'm on the Lions now, like you can never take that away, what an honor, blah blah blah. Whereas I look back now and I massively regret that, because my attitude should have been like it was all the way going through school.
As if it was just another step up.
Yeah, this is another step up. I'm going to make sure I'm going to be the starting 9 against South Africa. Whereas because I wasn't originally picked on the tour squad, I was kind of first reserve in.
Yeah.
I had that real disappointment that I'd missed the original selection.
Yeah.
And then when I did get selected, I was just, thank goodness I've been selected. I'm a Lion now. So in terms of steps up, that was probably the only one that I got wrong, and I blame that kind of more on a mental side than a physical side, I think.
Well, it certainly didn't hold you back. In terms of Scotland, you had a very illustrious career. You made your debut against Canada. You actually scored in your debut, and you had 10 years with Scotland. What was, you could pick out one highlight of your Scotland time, 85 caps? Which one would it be that you sort of take to your desert island?
I've been asked this a couple of times. I find it quite a difficult question because, like, for me personally, I enjoyed when we beat England in 2008. So it's the first game I'd been captain at home. We won the game. I was man of the match. So, like, in terms of kind of ticking boxes, that was a great one. But it was a pretty rubbish game. It was raining. It was pretty miserable. But that in terms of kind of achievements, that would be one. But I think what big standout maybe was 2012 when we toured Australia, Fiji, and Samoa.
Yes,
and we won all three games. But wow. in terms of an experience, like I'm unlikely to go to Samoa again. I did actually go to Fiji coaching, but just an unreal experience to be part of just a different world over there. We won all three games. So yeah, like a lot of my really fond memories are from that tour.
You were playing at a time when there was competition for the Scotland scrum half position. We always seem to have had lots of scrum halves. In the 70s, I grew up, you're either an Alan Lawson fan or a Dougie Morgan fan. You won't remember that, you're too young. You were in competition with Chris Cussiter and Rory Lawson. 3-1 doesn't go, Mike. So what was the dynamics there? Did you all sort of stare at each other across the coaching room, or were you all big buddies and it was just a case of who got lucky, who got picked?
Yeah, we all got on pretty well at different times. Actually, during lockdown, my dad was going through all the old VHSs that he's got, and they'd recorded some of our games when we were at the academy. So it'd been the Gites, so when we'd be 12 years old or something, and find a VHS against Dollar Academy.
Yep.
And Roy Lawson was playing for Dollar Academy.
Of course.
So I've known him for a long time. I even remember then there were rumors that he played for Scotland under 12, and Scotland under 12 wasn't even a thing.
Yes.
So he kind of carried that with him. I remember I had trials with Scotland under 15, and I didn't get in. But the player who got in and captained the team was Rory Lawson, and he hadn't even played in the trial. So he kind of carried that with him, being Bill McLaren's grandson as well.
Yes. Which can be a curse as well as a blessing.
Yeah, I think so. I kind of sometimes think about potential pressure that's being put on my son in particular, through having a dad who played rugby for Scotland. And the expectation is that he should be very good, and like he loves his rugby and he's a good player, but it's a difficult expectation to have. But yeah, myself, Roy, and Chris, we did end up getting on pretty well. Myself and Chris Custer, it was quite difficult at the start. We kind of players. Between me and him probably for kind of 5 or 6 years. So it was an amicable friendship, but it wasn't, let's go for a coffee together. Whereas actually now, and probably from that 2012 tour that I mentioned, like we've got on really well. We keep in touch. He's in America now. We regularly chat. So yeah, things have changed a bit. But like competition's great. It's great for the team. It's great for the country. It's great for the media to talk about. So it was all positive, I think.
We're going to return to Gregor Townsend shortly. And one thing that he did and one thing that you did was you went to France for a season. You both have gone to France. Was it a case, Mike, be honest, of the money, or was it a chance to live in a different world, a different environment, learn a new language, eat different food, that kind of thing? What was it? A bit of both?
I mean, to be honest, it wasn't the money at all. I got paid less there than I did when I was with Edinburgh. There were circumstances around that. In about December, January of the last year of my contract with Edinburgh, I said that my plan was to leave Edinburgh. I'd lived in Edinburgh pretty much all my life. My wife, similar, she was Glasgow University for a bit, but we fancied a change, and I had a club lined up in France, but they pulled out. The system in France is crazy. The president just suddenly decided that he didn't want to put the budget in the following year, so my contract went there. I was really close to signing for Western Force in Australia. Had been speaking to the head coach there. It was all, it got to the stage where we're talking about accommodation and what have you, and then he got sacked. And their season didn't start for another kind of 4 or 5 months, so they were in no rush to sign any players. They said, look, it's on hold. So I didn't actually sign for Brive until I was on that tour in mid-May, when my contract ran out on the 31st of May. So we ended up going to Brive. It was a stressful time. I was considering not signing for someone and just waiting to be a medical joker. So wait for someone to get injured and then they bring you in. But I went to Brive and they'd just been relegated to Pro D2, to the second division. So it was a bit of a risk. But like it wasn't like I had huge amounts on the table, because everyone had finished up their roster for their year. But we had an amazing year. The rugby was interesting. It was kind of a third of the games were full stadiums, great weather, great games. A third of them were kind of okay, half stadiums, not great weather, and a third of them were just you wanted to retire because the weather was so bad. You're playing in the middle of a field somewhere in Osh, and it was just a waste of time. So from a rugby, it was an interesting experience, but from family, it was brilliant. We absolutely loved it. My daughter was born there. But probably our one regret probably is that we didn't stick it out long enough. So I'd signed a 1-year contract and had similar contract issues in that the owner had said that if we got promoted, then I'd get a pay increase and a longer contract. But if we didn't get promoted, then they couldn't afford to keep me. So we couldn't wait until the playoff final at the end of May. So we made the decision to come to Newcastle. But yeah, it's probably one of my regrets not spending more time in France, because speaking the language, we got to a certain level, which was fine. But, Gregor was 4 or 5 years in France, and his French is amazing. He speaks to the Racing coaches about Finn Russell in French.
That must presumably help, the fact you can speak the language when you're in a situation like that.
Yeah, definitely. It allows you to potentially explain yourself better. It creates a better bond of relationship as well. So yeah, that's probably one of my big regrets, not being able to stay a bit longer in France.
How important has Gregor been to you, both as a player, because you played together a little, and subsequently as a coach for Edinburgh and Glasgow, and now in Scotland?
Yeah, the playing side's interesting. We actually only ever played with each other once against America in the World Cup, and he always tries to take the piss out of me about how he gets the sore back and hamstrings from picking my passes up off the ground. But then I retort with him that we played against the Borders when he was there, Edinburgh against Border Reivers, and we hammered them every time. And we won by 40, 50 points whenever he was playing. So my retort is about that. But from a coaching point of view,
you had hair and he didn't.
I think he had the little tuft up there, but he was he was living in denial then. I think it's part of coaching life is that you end up bald at some stage. I mean, the Lions coaches are all bald. A lot of the Scotland coaches are bald, but I'm hanging in there. So, but he's been really, really good, really important for me in a coaching world. I originally, when I was finishing up at Newcastle, I thought coaching was going to be the first thing I tried, because it was what I knew. I'd played professional rugby for 14 years. It was 15 years. It was what I knew. It was what I wanted to try next. And my original route was to speak to Scott Johnson, who was director of rugby at the time, and see what coaching jobs were available. And he said, look, we've got something with the academy, within the academy system, which would be good. And I said, oh, that'd be excellent. So, is there any opportunity to do some elite stuff as well? So coach the nines at the pro teams or something. And he said, no, mate, it's just this. And I was a little bit deflated by that, because I wanted to stay in the elite game as much as possible. So I kind of went behind Scott Johnson's back and phoned Gregor and said, I'm keen to get into coaching. Is there anything that I can do with you? And he basically came back to me and said, it's a World Cup year. We're 9 short for the first 6 months. If you come and play for us for 6 months, then we'll put a year of coaching on the end of it. So I'd already had my mind set up on stopping playing at that stage, but that opportunity to come back to Scotland to get a little leg up on the coaching system was too good to turn down. So end up doing that, and Greg has kind of kept me with him with the Glasgow stuff and Scotland stuff as well. So he's been absolutely brilliant for me, and learning from him as well.
It's quite a family affair with the Blairs, because obviously you talked about your grandfather and your father. Yeah, you were at the academy, your kids are at the academy, and also your wife Viv works for the academy in some capacity, and indeed you actually met her at the academy where she was a pupil too.
Yeah, so Viv and I have been together since I was 15, and she was 16. So older lady. So I got all the kudos in school for picking up an older girl at school. But yeah, we've been together since then. So she's been kind of Glasgow University back with Edinburgh, and then I've been Durham University and back in Edinburgh, and then we've done everything else together since then, and 2 kids who are now at the academy as well. So yeah, definitely runs through us.
And finally, Mike, you must look forward to the day where you're kicking the ball on the newly opened and newly christened Rayburn Place, where rugby all began, all those years ago, international rugby. It must be a thrill for you to see the new stadium taking shape.
Oh, it's stunning, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. I know there were issues with how it would look in the environment, but I think it adds to it. You stand above the Inverleith Pond and look over, and it's an amazing piece of kind of architecture, and the way that the sun bounces off it. I think it's great for the area. It's great for rugby, and it's great for our club.